Hello and welcome to Dice Punks, a tabletop role-playing podcast where we focus on playing full campaigns in less well-known systems. This week, the VRuTech mission continues as Byrne sneaks around in VRuTech's headquarters and Cal is called up to deal with some petty vandalism. Hello and welcome. I'm Adam, your friendly neighborhood game master, and joining me are...
Hello, I'm Drew, and I'll be playing Cato Burke, aka Hecate, who just, I think, watched Cal not tase a guy and then get a phone call in the middle of a stakeout.
Hello, I'm Robin, and I'll be playing Cal Armitage, but that's officer to you, including, apparently, when I'm off the clock.
I'm Dez, and I will be playing Matchstick, who is weaponizing their youth.
Hello, I am Nick, and I will be playing Ing, a cyborg whose very accent is a war crime against Australia.
It's a pretty good American doing an Australian accent, I think. Not that maybe says much.
We haven't received any diplomatic communiques on the topic.
I mean, if you are listening to this and you're Australian, drop us a line in Discord, and I will personally apologize.
And look, listeners, I promise to let you know the instant that I get an email from the Australian government about it.
I'd love for it to become a campaign issue.
Patreon.com/dicepunks to join that Patreon Discord where you can be updated the very moment it happens instead of through Tumblr or Blue Sky.
Should we have a tier? Just you have to prove your Australian citizenship, but then personal apology from Nick is one of the two.
Absolutely.
I guess not citizenship. Extraction is fine, but you got to prove your Australianity.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, players and listeners, for that matter, for putting up with our little opening hijinks. Hopefully you enjoy them. But let's get right into the play with our recap from last time, courtesy this time of Cato.
So, Bronwyn found the baby, and didn't want me to call it that. Something had gotten through what we'd used to cover and isolate the thing we got at the auction, the pie reciter, the baby. Worse, the security footage had been tampered with. Concerning for multiple reasons, so we don't know exactly what got in, though apparently, whatever it was, came in through the floor, that it was small. Bronwyn told us that the baby bore a striking resemblance to a certain creepypasta, which seems to have disappeared, which is, itself, creepy. We're compromised, one way or another, but now isn't the time to slow down. We can't just sit around, babysitting. No, Bronwyn realized that what we needed wasn't a rotating watch, but a mouser. And brought over Prolix, an ever-yowling cat with a collar, currently unremovable, which translates the yowls into Everbabble. Cal protected Ing's drones from the cat, as one does. That problem being more or less under control, we set to work planning our break-in at VRuTech in the building currently getting done up by Zenova Ultragraphics. That, we decided, did require a stakeout. Kenneth Appelmans, one of the hired security goons from Ogremok, was on the Bacon app. Good luck there. Cal wasn't able to lure him out of the building, but they did get a hold of the guy's stun gun and cover for Byrne to get inside the building. He managed to bullshit his way past the lobby desk, up the elevator, and into the hallways above. So, at the risk of cliché, we're in.
Marvelous. That is more or less precisely where we left off last time with Byrne I almost said layering, but that's probably a little too presumptuous on my part, secreting themselves in the staircase in the VRuTech headquarters levels of the Zenobia Ultragraphics skyscraper in progress. And Cal headed in Cato's direction, getting called up by Lou Tupper to deal with some vandalism complaints on behalf of somebody named Brodrig. So I think that just because I'm perfectly infuriating, we're going to pick up outside the skyscraper with Cal and this message from Lou Tupper, who should know that you're not on duty right now.
So there are a few things that I would know as Cal that as a player I'm not aware of.
Sure.
The first being the urgency of the situation of the text from Lou Tupper, and the second being the frequency with which Lou expects me to do work off the clock and how that underscores any said urgency or likely lack thereof.
So this is a relatively recent development in terms of demanding off-the-clock work. It does not originate with the burning of the warehouse as a result of that auction, but it does not predate that early episode in our campaign by very much. This is not a long-standing thing. Now, this does interface somewhat with the nature of the repeated complaints from Brodrig. This guy, Max Brodrig, runs a campus free speech nonprofit, which if you are listening to this contemporaneously to when we are recording it, probably makes you go, good. It's a thing with a relatively innocuous kind of description that is, in fact, basically a bludgeon wielded by moneyed interests on the far right, and that is more or less what Max Brodrig runs. He is loosely affiliated with the Singularists, and his headquarters are on the Event Horizon Plaza edge of PSS's jurisdiction. He calls frequently, though blessedly less often when the students aren't in classes. However, we are here in the first full week of classes. Second full week of classes. We are here in the second full week of classes. And apparently that is how long it took for some people to get fed up with Broderick's nonsense and do who knows what to his little storefront HQ. And Tupper has decided to message you about it while you are not on the clock.
Got it. So not urgent to me, but urgent to Tupper.
Indeed.
I'm going to continue heading in Cato's direction, and I'm going to show them the text.
Oh, I love the idea of ignoring that completely.
If only I could. That's a great way of getting Lou breathing down the back of my neck.
All right, well, how long would it take to take care of, and can I take over whatever you were doing? And was it zapping that guy?
I love the
answer in whatever order you want.
I don't think this would take long. As much as I wanted to using your terminology, I guess, zap that guy would not have been advised in such a crowded lobby. Maybe later.
You made the right call. Do you have time for us to stage a little, I don't know, me attacking you outside so he has to run to your rescue and then we both zap him kind of thing?
I could make time for that.
No time like the present.
This is Cal's version of like sappy romantic movie dialogue.
Yeah, no, like that has strong overtones of "for you anything, darling."
I thought you were gonna say it's Cal's version of like a Three's Company-esque, like I'm on dates with two people at once kind of thing. Like,
Yeah, that's also going on at once.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see there's be some overlap there.
Mhm.
Excellent. So I'm going to do a lot of hopping around here because I have consumed a lot of caffeine in the last 4 days, and I'm at my peak of consumption. So that's the way my brain works right now. Burn. I think I found a new text tone. So
The listener could not know if they're hearing this in any form that after Death said that he chugged was that like half a bottled Frappuccino or something?
Like an inch.
Okay.
it was very well performed. Just have to take our word for it.
Honestly, I missed it because that's what the inside of my head sounds like often. So I just thought the voices were sounding off again. Like, okay, this is normal.
Surprised to learn that we could hear it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, Burn, you are in a concrete stairwell on a landing at the 3rd floor of the under construction Zenova Ultra Graphics Silicon District skyscraper, which is to say the first of 3 floors that are occupied by VRuTech's headquarters. You are relatively sure that no one is paying attention to you at this point. What are you up
Good.
to?
Waiting.
All right. For anything in particular?
Long enough after quitting time to not be obvious anymore.
Sounds good. Now, Ing,
Mhm.
I have you in my notes as being a couple blocks away, but your drones are with Burn.
Yes.
Are you doing anything in particular, or are you just sort of like standing ready for when the drones need to be activated?
I think after a bit of time waiting around, Toots, the cockroach drone, just scuttles out from beneath the clothing, unless there's any uncomfortable movement from Burn, and just kind
Do
of
not let me stand in the way of getting your cockroach off my body.
So after scuttling down the pant leg and out onto the floor, just kind of gestures and hops towards the door to investigate whether it can scrap under the door jamb or not.
So I know this drone, Toots, is shaped like a cockroach. Is it the size of a normal cockroach? And follow-up question, how compressible is it?
I would say that it is not compressible, and it is the size of one of those largish hissing cockroaches.
Not probably going to be able to get through the door without opening it a crack then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it scuttles for a moment, looks back towards Burn.
I will
And then-
duly open the door, close the door, and then I go up a flight.
Okay,
Right.
Toots goes and is currently on a mission.
All right. Ing, are you seeking anything in particular with Toots?
Just a sense of whether there are still people here or not.
Okay. In that case, I'm not going to require you to do a robotics roll just yet. This is all fairly de rigueur. Yeah, there are still people here. You do see evidence of quite a lot of packing up, standing around chatting. Most people seem like they're on their way out soon. But not everyone, and the people who are on their way out soon are still currently here.
Okay. In that case, I think that Toots would find someplace unobtrusive, whether that is a fake fern or into a wastebasket or something like that. So it's not to be
Probably more
observed.
the latter than the former. There are a couple of plants, none fake, but they're on this floor, but there aren't that many, and none of them in the vicinity of the stairwell. So, all right. Hopping back outside of the building proper. Cal, and to a lesser degree, Kato, you have some plates to spin. You've discussed a little bit about it. What's your plan of action?
Are there any windows that are visible from Kenneth's desk where this scuffle could take place?
Fortunately for you, many of the skyscrapers on the downtown end of Grand Cross have just glass front first and second floors. So almost anywhere that could be seen from the lobby out onto the street is at least a possibility for getting somebody's attention in the lobby. The flip side of that is that they can see quite a lot, and this is pretty close to Silicon District, and it's quitting time. There are a lot of people. This is almost as crowded as pedestrian areas of Grand Cross get.
Okay.
We're in danger of another attempted Samaritan here. We wouldn't want some rando to get hurt.
And we don't want any additional security forces called.
Definitely not that.
I can still call Kenneth in. And now that I have his number, they can essentially entrap him, but you didn't hear that from me.
I most certainly didn't, officer. I'm sorry to miss the zapping, but if the job's done, then the job's done.
I'm sorry to miss the zapping, too.
We both look wistful for a moment.
So I don't know how accurate my detailed mental image of Cal is to yours, Robin, but I get a lot of humor out of imagining the Cal I have in my head saying the things that you have Cal say. In any case, I take that to mean that we are not at this very moment staging any kind of altercation, but are we up to anything in particular between the two of you?
Do you think the kid's going to be okay?
Yeah, no concern there at all. He'll be fine. I hope. This is the kind of thing they're really good at. Not the being in physical space part, that not so much, but the rest of it. They're in their element, so yeah, I think the kid will be fine.
Is this in the PSS district, or is there another?
You are currently about a block and a half outside of PSS's shared jurisdiction. So there's sort of like the core campus where PSS has primary jurisdiction. Then there's sort of like the periphery where PSS has shared jurisdiction with station security. You are about a block and a half out of that in pure station security territory.
Okay. Well, call or text me if that changes. I'd better see to this to avoid having Lou throw a tantrum.
Yeah, text if you need help with, if you need some, muscle for this disruption. Seems serious.
I doubt it. Probably just some activist kids thinking they're making a difference.
Well, here's hoping all around.
I don't know why I didn't make this comparison earlier, but facing our listeners, particularly, Max Broderick is basically like what Steven Crowder used to do if Steven Crowder was an Elon Musk fanboy.
You.
Yeah.
Every time I think I've heard the most cursed sentence I've ever heard. There are new depths to plumb.
So it sounds like for the most part, we are passing a little bit of time. Cal is passing a little bit of time going to Broderick's little storefront HQ, and everybody else is waiting for the quitting time crowd to thin out.
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye close to the building and waiting to hear anything from Byrne or indeed from Ing if the drones notice anything that requires immediate attention. Very
good. Our listeners are going to hear in just a moment. I have I was going to say brand new, but it's actually quite old, sort of carved wooden little dice container. And I'm going to randomize a little bit of what happens here by shaking my dice around in this and then taking the lid off and seeing what they show. So you're going to hear that very briefly. I hope it is a pleasant sound. All right. Mostly time passes with us biding our time. Not a lot of time. You know, rush hour being rush hour slows everybody's passage down, but everybody does get to where they're going eventually, and it doesn't take eons to happen. But, Cato, as you are kind of standing by waiting to hear things from people who might need your assistance, your attention is drawn seemingly in accord with what this person would probably want to a youngish woman, relatively compact, in what is for Grand Cross a pretty outlandish getup. These terms mean different things on Grand Cross, of course. It is not every day, however, that you see somebody walking the streets of Grand Cross in what appears to be a nun's habit. This one in particular has what appear to be like LED stars on it, and the young woman in question has a impressive enough suite of augments on her head and neck to almost qualify as like concerning. Whether you do anything with this information or not is up to you, but you see this person.
So did Ing mention the run-in with this person? Remind me. I know the focus was on the asshole in that room, but
yeah, no, good question. I think that I probably would have if you'd shown enough interest to be interested in kind of my life in general. So, we haven't done too much of small talk, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It might have been off screen. So, would there have been some interest from Cato in terms of, that?
Well, what I can say is that in terms of on air, we don't have anything definitive about Ing mentioning Apatia. We definitely have something definitive about Ing mentioning the asshole. But, yeah, kind of some wiggle room there, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out if I have a canonical reason to approach this person in the middle of a stakeout. Because as a player, of course, I want to. But is there any reasonable reason that I would actually be doing that? I find this person intriguing enough that I don't currently try to look inconspicuous, even though I should probably be doing that.
Well, that actually calls for, I think, another more specific role from me. So give me just one moment while I shake my little wooden box around again.
It's a very pleasant sound, for the record.
I'm glad. I find it pleasant, but I don't know how it's mediated by a microphone.
I really enjoyed it.
Excellent.
It brings a touch of the occult to rolling the dice.
It does sound like there are bones in there, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What? That's crazy.
I have some extra if you need more. All organic.
Ethically sourced.
So
by an ethic, yeah.
So, as this unusually dressed person is sort of passing by, she seems to glance, Cato, in your direction, take another 2 steps, and then sort of look back more intently. And then pauses and weaves through the crowd toward where you are standing. Once she is close enough, she sort of gives you a very quick sort of like up and down look, and then says very matter-of-factly, as though it prescribes some kind of response on your part, "You aren't symmetrical."
You've got taste, you noticed. Yeah, I think I don't usually say this so quickly after meeting someone, but I think maybe certain crabs know something we don't.
She starts to make a little like pincher gesture, but before it gets above her waist, she realizes what she's doing and puts her hand back down. As she says, I have always found it interesting to observe nature for cues. If you don't mind my asking, how did you decide to go against the grain in that particular way?
That's a big question. Do you, in fact, have about 6 hours? I don't know. I guess when one can't help but go against the grain in certain ways, there's only 2 options, right? You can fight that your entire life, or you can go less and less against the grain with every passing year.
She looks a little thoughtful and kind of nods as though to herself. And she kind of looks around and goes, Are you busy?
Unfortunately, I am.
Most people usually are.
I find that. It's a real problem.
She gives you a somewhat sardonic look and says, well, if you find that you're not busy in the future, she extracts an actual old-fashioned business card from somewhere within her sleeves and hands it to you. It doesn't even have a QR code on it. It consists of a name, Apatia Cravacia, and a email address / sort of multimodal online alias, Starless Nun. And then
I take the business card with I'm smirking out of one side of my mouth, but I'm taking it reverently with both hands, but like a Japanese businessman, to emphasize the asymmetry.
Right. She seems appreciative and says, well, I wouldn't want to keep you from what you're doing, but I wager we have something to talk about. And I'm always looking for interesting people. She gives a very displeased expression to the masses of people currently walking past you. And says, I'm usually around, but, well, let me know when you're less busy.
I most certainly will. Believe me when I say that I don't say this to just everyone. You're pretty interesting yourself.
She runs a hand lightly over the back of her head and her neck where all of her mismatched augments are, and says, flattery will get you to parts unknown, and then walks off.
That is a hell of a line, Jesus.
I'm trying to think if I can. I'm thinking if I can physically blush at this point in my augmentation state, but a question for another day, perhaps, because we're cutting away.
Yeah, well, my assumption would be probably not in the conventional ways, but you may have, other ways of showing the general seeming of a blush.
Sure,
we'll figure it out later.
Indeed.
So, pardon me. I think it makes sense to go back to Burn first. You stop hearing the general shuffling of people quitting at a certain point, a couple of minutes.
Yep.
10 or so minutes after you duck into the stairwell. There are certainly still going to be people, but fewer, and not moving around as much. What's your next move?
So, review with me what I know. I know that I need to get computer access. I know that the data that we are after A is for scrubbing purposes, and B is likely to be accessible at least partly, or at least largely from anywhere. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think the way I had set it up last time is that while you are on site, most access points will get you access to the intranet. If you were present in the server room, you would have both digital and physical options. It is a question of how difficult it is to find what you're looking for in terms of how and where you access the intranet. But you are
Okay.
currently on site, so
Yes.
most things will get you access to the intranet here.
So I suppose the next question then is, can I determine from the plans that we have where the server room may be?
Beyond probably on the 4th floor, which is, if I remember correctly, having opened and closed the door a crack for Toots, the floor that you're on the landing of.
Yeah, because I went up one.
Yeah, so on the 4th floor is the most specific information you have as far as where the server room would be.
Okay. And what other bots do I have on my person?
Well,
Good question.
if Ing put all of the drones in your baggy clothes, which was my impression, certainly, you would still have 9. You would have Peggy, a beetle, Tran, a dragonfly, Diego, a flying ant, Mama and Daddy, both mini quad drones, Buddy, that was my mistake, a hummingbird, Bruv, a spider, Wiggles, a tiny Gundam, and Banjo, a scorpion.
How the fuck did I get all of these sequestered on my person?
Baggy pants and a hoodie. Honestly, the quad drones are the
drones.
Yeah, the quad drones are the only ones that are really a problem.
They're probably about this size, so that doesn't obviate the problem, but they're probably tucked in the small of the back and or in the belly, on top of the shoulders, things like that.
They are not currently hovering within your clothes.
Right.
Reassuring. However, now I do want to sort of imagine them as 1980s shoulder pads.
Shoulder pads, yes.
Ooh. Strong
That would
look.
draw a little more attention, but also might be worth it. Strong look.
I've already bullshit my way past the humans who are relevant to this endeavor.
Fair enough.
Plus, what even are kids these days wearing?
All sorts of things. Most of them are not dressing like you're dressed, but that doesn't mean very much.
Exactly. So, assuming then that I have a way to communicate with the outside, I request of Ing that a drone or two be set loose on the 4th floor so that they can find the server room and whether it's occupied.
All right. By merely uttering such a thing or texting it, you do get
Texting, probably.
Buddy and I'll say Tran peel off.
Also, for your purposes, Nick, it may be worth noting the degree to which Burn is behaving as if older, or at least more professional during this all.
And for our listeners, Buddy and Tran are hummingbird and dragonfly shaped, respectively.
Marvelous. I open the door and let them go. Then I probably go up another floor, just for paranoia's sake.
Sure. So those 2 drones head out on the 4th floor, and Burn heads up to the 5th floor landing. So with Burn having moved up to the 5th floor landing, and Ing's drones loose on the 4th floor, I think this is as good a time as any for Ing to roll robotics, which is going to be clever plus robotics or plus 5 on 2d6.
I dropped one in case you're wondering about the extra audio. That's plus 3, so 3 plus 5 is not a lot. 8.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could be better. Okay, so it is perhaps fortunate for you that the 4th floor does not seem to be heavily staffed. What I just clicked away from it. What Tran and Buddy discover of the 4th floor is that the sort of outer circuit of the floor is hallways, and I mean they're built as offices, but what they really currently are is like storage and workspaces with like 3 offices interspersed around the exterior. The interior of the floor is basically all one big space that contains mostly server racks, but some maintenance and access hardware interspersed. The server racks are contained in a glassed-in area that has one entry door on the interior side most proximate to the elevators, which is to say that there is sort of a little hollow for the elevator lobby in the middle of the server racks. Does not seem like the elevators stop here very often.
I relay all of this to Burn. Matchstick in this case.
I would also appreciate, Ing, for you to do me a solid and give me a roll. I will let you know the outcome. 2d6.
7 total.
Okay. Now I have to make a roll. How is that fair? Okay. You become aware after you have done most of this sort of surveilling, getting the lay of the land, that there is more thorough surveillance of this floor than you realized. And it is likely that your drones have been picked up. It doesn't seem like in real time, it doesn't seem like there's anybody observing this, but if anybody goes back through the sort of security data, they will probably be able to make your 2 drones.
Is there an open voice comm at this point, or are we communicating via group chat?
My assumption has been that you've mostly been communicating via text, but if you wish to open voice, I think that's an option at any time.
It's fine. I'll follow on. Just drop in the group chat. Potentially bad news. I think that my drones have been made. Not necessarily in real time, but if we don't clean up, there's some fingerprints all over this. Security
Noted.
seems like it's a bit tighter.
You get an angry face emoji.
Way to like vague in response. Damn. Given that, I don't think that I'm going bodily onto the 4th floor, alas.
Mm-hmm. Well, you are currently on the 5th floor landing, so if you wish
Yeah.
to do anything bodily before I wrench us around to Cal's POV, then this is your opportunity.
I ask Ing whether he had noticed cameras or the like on the 3rd floor, assuming it was cameras that made the drones.
Does Toots see anything of the sort? Toots the
Good
cockroach.
Question. This is a great opportunity to roll clever plus robotics. So 2d6 plus 5.
Yep. I dropped one of my 2 dice again. Hence the extra roly. That is a total of 6 on the die. Plus 5 is going to be an 11.
Okay. There we go. Okay. As far as you can tell, your presence on the 3rd floor collectively is still unobserved. Presumably, anybody looking back at the tapes for the 3rd floor would be able to see Burns' laughing guy persona, but beyond that.
Still quiet as far as I could tell.
I'm for reference, I'm updating my laughing guy now to Chucklefuck McSecurity guy.
All right.
Complete with name tag, I assume.
No. Apple, whatever.
Sure.
This is something that in character you'd be apprised of. His post is in the lobby. He's not.
I am extremely aware.
Okay, just making sure.
This is purely for purposes of video surveillance and post hoc. Wait, what?
Sure. Just making sure that we were all thinking the same thing. Good deal.
Oh yes, no, I'm causing problems for someone else on purpose.
Sure. And possibly for us, not on purpose, but we'll find that out later.
I'm always causing problems for us, not mostly on purpose.
Mostly not on purpose. So, how messy we talking? What would it take to clean it up? How made?
Well, I think it's the equivalent of some video camera footage, that kind of a thing. It's possible that it's being monitored in real time, in which case time is of the essence to either get in or get out. But it seems to be asynchronous, would be my educated guess.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if there's anything we could do about that footage, then that'd be good. But let's not let that distract us from what we're here to do. Because now speed is probably the most important part. How's it going?
We're good.
I am a gremlin now loose on the 3rd floor, I think.
Okay. So Burn heads down to the 3rd floor, and I am going to wrench us away to Cal. It's been a minute.
Whee!
Mwahaha, ha ha ha. And this is important. Ha ha ha.
Oh no.
So, Cal, in this time, you have gotten over to this sort of border area of jurisdictions where Max Brodrigg's little storefront office space is. And I'm not using little metaphorically here. It is like 10 feet wide with a door and a window and just occupies the 1st floor. It is not a primarily physical space that is important here, but it is the physical space that gets vandalized. At any time, there are at most 3 people in here, usually 1 or 2. And currently, as you approach, it is very obvious what has happened. Somebody has thrown something hard and heavy through the window. Not subtle, not clever, effective in that it makes people spend money. As you approach, you take in a familiar sight. This is on Reed Street, not the most Silicon District coded, or for that matter, a Selden District coded area. It is sort of in between. It's got net cafes, geek stores, stuff that appeals to both singularists in the Silicon District area and students in the more proximate vicinity of G-Pole. But the storefront that you are looking at here is for a nonprofit called, confusingly enough, Event Horizon. Now, their storefront is very bland. It's got the name Event Horizon in white, vaguely sci-fi themed lettering on a star field. And then sort of in the window of the entryway, it has a little mission statement that includes things like the phrase combating left-wing views in universities in the little paragraph that it's got there. Currently, there is a fluorescent light on inside and a pretty irate Max Broderick sort of standing just inside, looking like a dissatisfied customer, which is usually what he does.
Mm-hmm.
For our listeners who won't have seen him before, this is a guy who pretty much always dresses like he's at a job interview. He's wearing a suit. He's got a relatively convincing fake or perhaps authentic Rolex. He's got relatively well-kept blonde hair, but in a do that suggests first day of kindergarten, my mother's very proud of the job she did on my hair. He does see you coming.
So I obviously would have removed the holographic projection armor.
Yeah.
And also changed my outfit a smidge. I probably took off the outermost layer and stashed it in a safe place.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very much civilian clothing right now. And as I approach, I flash my badge. Mr. Broderick, what was the name of, what is Tupper's official title?
His title is Chief of Polytech Security Solutions and G-Pole Campus Security.
Mr. Broderick, Chief Tupper sent me as soon as he could. I am technically off duty, but I'm here to file a report, whatever you need.
He says, well, it is about time. And continues as he was when you walked up to cross his arms in a dissatisfied manner and tap his foot. And he gestures in a eloquent but vague way at the window that has been broken and says, do you see what these communist anarchist leftists have done to my establishment?
Yes, I see the broken window, sir.
Well, my question is, what are you going to do about it?
I will file a report and see if we can't find who's responsible for this.
Oh, well, I'm saved then. Seems to me that Polytech Security Solutions allowing this to happen means that you should be paying for the repairs.
You're welcome to bring these concerns to Chief Tupper.
Trust me, I have, and I will. He seems to think that this is a gotcha.
Mm-hmm. I ignore him and make my way over to the broken window and start taking documentation of it, going through standard report filing procedure, checking off the boxes one by one in my mind.
Mm-hmm. He begins to narrate events surrounding the breaking of this window that it is very clear that he was not present for. But he does so at great length and at an impressive volume for a relatively diminutive person.
I repeatedly ask questions such as, so you were not present for this act of vandalism? And other things that would obviously kind of puncture holes into his at-length description of the event, but professionally.
Yeah, every time you do that, he adds another 120 seconds to his recitation of exactly what happened, which is more or less, I think, what you probably expect. And at one point, he says something about going to the press in the shape of a threat, but it is frankly incoherent in terms of like your presence here, because you're doing the thing he asked you to do. So I suppose it is up to you whether or not you respond to that in particular.
I respond vaguely saying that going to the press usually doesn't help us apprehend a suspect.
He pauses for a slow count of 2, and then picks back up as though his tirade was heading in this direction the whole time, saying, well, I know who your suspect is. Your suspect is the bluest-haired, most non-binary student at G-Pol. It should be easy to find, frankly, if you were doing your jobs.
Seems like blue hair has been a weird trend lately amongst the kids. Disconcerting. Do you have any security cam footage?
Sure, we have a great picture of the brick sailing through the window from 40 feet away. They probably used some sort of Antifa trebuchet.
This would be the first case I've seen with the trebuchet.
Well, that shows how well you've been doing your job, I suppose.
Do you have any video or footage of your suspect at large, or reason why you suspect this particular blue-haired, non-binary individual?
Well, it's the sort of person who doesn't like the free speech work that we do around campuses, isn't it?
I believe you misheard my question. I asked if you have any footage or reason why you suspect this particular individual.
Well, you should have the footage of them. You're the one who has access to the street cameras. I only have access to the cameras that I put up myself, which only show the interior and the outside wall. So, like I said, I have great footage of a brick sailing through our window in a way that your Polytech security solutions should have prevented.
I'm afraid we can't prevent window breaks, but we can have an increased force in this area.
Well, hallelujah. I look forward to seeing what that presence looks like. After all of the incidents that have happened here, you would think we'd already have an increased presence, wouldn't you?
How many incidences have occurred, to my knowledge?
To your knowledge, there have been 7. Not mostly broken windows, much more spray paint, though you can remember one other that involved broken glass.
Okay. I'll also pull the street cam footage, too.
Mm-hmm. It also shows a brick sailing from out of frame.
Okay. I was going to say, I'll add, I was saying that out loud, to Max, and I would mutter to myself and see if we can't narrow the description of the suspect down.
Not based on the Reed Street footage, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Tragic.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would take down any other recorded statements or what have you that I would need to file a report on this.
Sure. Yeah, you go through the motions. This is not the first time that you've been called in on this particular location, although you count yourself fortunate that this is really only your second time doing it personally. You hear about it a lot more than you actually have to attend to it. And in the meantime, I will do a little bit of a circuit here. Kato, is there anything in particular that you would be wished to doing with the interim?
Oh, it's killing me not doing more, but someone needs to just be outside the building and be ready. Do I notice any increased presence of any kind, or for that matter, decreased as the normals start to wend their way home?
I mean, as time goes on, it gets less crowded, and that's about as much as you can really say at this point, which is to be expected. Pedestrian rush hour subsides.
I've read the business card probably 5 to 7 times, but otherwise I am keeping an eagle eye on the group chat to make sure there's nothing I can do, but somebody's got to watch the front.
Very well. So, we kind of have Burn and Ing on the inside, but Ing's not really on the inside, just Ing's drones are on the inside. I think perhaps more salient currently is Burn going back down to the 3rd floor and getting, as I believe that you had phrased it, loose there. So re-emerging on
in the sense of there is a horse loose in the hospital.
Indeed, yes. Re-emerging onto the 3rd floor, it is sparsely populated. The folks who are still here are hunched over computer terminals pretty much uniformly. Everybody who is done with their work for the day has gone home, or rather, left the building, hoping to get home soon. This leaves you with a skyscraper floor shared between you and a half dozen or less other people who are currently attempting to finish what they have to do to get home for the weekend. And I suppose also Toots somewhere on the floor.
I find an unoccupied office.
It is easy enough to do. It does take a minute or two just to traverse and sort of scope things out. Most of the
Shall
offices...
I roll stealth then?
Not necessary in this case, but thank you for sort of thinking through it. Basically, nobody is paying attention unless you enter their cubicle at this point. And
absolutely the fuck not. I am not here to socialize.
Indeed. And the offices are pretty much all vacant as far as you can tell. You haven't seen anyone in an office because those folks are important enough to go home on time, particularly at the end of a normal workday. So, one office being as good as another, it takes you maybe 160 seconds to get from the stairwell into an unoccupied office. And
Delightful.
Here you are.
Indeed.
You have no information about who may occupy this office, but it is...
not even a nameplate on the door or anything?
Yes, there is indeed a nameplate on the door. It is in fact, something you've observed about this particular area of this skyscraper, but all of the actual nameplates or information plates are of individuals who occupy outer ring offices. Nothing else is labeled, just the names of people who are occupying offices here.
Wow.
This office belongs to Carlos Jefferson.
Do I recall anything about Mr. Jefferson from the personnel data collection?
No, this is a person who was not mentioned, and their nameplate does not include a title, so you know that they are neither C-suite nor IT. But beyond that,
okay,
unknown.
First, is there a handy post-it note or equivalent with passwords behind the monitor on the underside of the desk, on the underside of the top drawer, on to either the right or left hand, or anything similarly interesting, or like make my life easier.
I am going to roll and then tell you if you need to roll. So here's that
'Kay.
little wooden box sound again. You do, in fact, need to make a roll. This is going to be a clever roll, I think, without specialty, just 2d6 plus 3.
That is a total of 11.
Total
Double
of
fours.
11. Okay. Not bad. At first, you are a little frustrated, and then you realize that no, there is no sticky note on the back of a monitor or under the desk or whatever. But you turn a mouse pad over, and voila, there it is.
Nice. That saves me like 3 or 4 tricks up my sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
I use the password.
Yeah, you wake the computer, you use the password, you have access to whatever Carlos Jefferson has access to, which is not immediately clear just upon logging in, but you have a desktop and you have some basic network credentials.
Cool. So I think So remind me, Ghost Protocols, that's just getting out clean for a program?
Ghosting in general is remaining...
Well, I have the programmed Ghost Protocols,
Mm-hmm. So,
which I wrote down helpfully as Ghost Protocols without any fucking detail.
Yeah. So ghosting in general is, remaining undetected in a system. In terms
Right.
of programs, Ghost Protocols.
Because mostly I want to be sure that if it's necessary to activate it first, I fucking do.
Mm-hmm. Ghost Protocols read, you may spend 1 prep when you begin a hack to gain 1 additional chance on your ghost and boost your first hacking action made within the network.
Yes, I would like to do that. And because I have Script Kitty, I do not spend that prep because it's -1 prep the first time you use a program in a hack.
Okay. So, you should then go ahead and, assuming you are going to exceed Carlos Jefferson's permissions pretty quickly.
Fuck yes, I am.
Go ahead and roll a ghosting for me, if you would.
Yeah. So that is double 5s for a total of 16.
Okay. Not all bad.
You said boost the first attack or first action?
I believe, and I'm going to double check here.
Recall to me the mechanics of boosting. Is that roll an extra die and take the best set?
Boost your first hacking action, which you haven't taken
hacking,
yet.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
But boosting is indeed, and I'm double checking here, rolling an additional d6 and adding it to the total. So it is not advantage, it is just straight up adding an extra die.
Well then.
Mm-hmm. So, what are you attempting to accomplish on Carlos Jefferson's terminal here?
I would like to get Mr. Jefferson better access.
Okay.
Admin if possible, but, enough to snoop with authority.
Very well.
I assume that I'm now rolling that first boosted hacking action.
Do roll a boosted hacking action, yes.
So that is 652 for a total of 19.
Okay. Just 1 second here.
It's good to be a specialized character.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so between your ghosting roll and your hacking roll here, you have managed, using Carlos Jefferson's terminal, to gain what I will call temporary administrator privileges. Administrator privileges. Basically, what you're looking at here is you have changed the network mood to administrator access, but very temporarily. This token will expire very quickly. What is
also just for background reference, I am wearing gloves.
Of course, yes, I understand that to be the case, but I do appreciate you pointing it out for our listeners. So,
I mean, the next step is to find the relevant data that we're here to get.
Okay. So, this has some time pressure on it before your credentials expire. Yep. So, I would like you to roll a clever plus hacking. This is going to be at disadvantage because there is a lot of information. So roll 3 dice, take the lowest 2, add your 6.
Ew. That is 5, 4, 4. So, total of 15, improbably.
14, I think. 4, 4, 6.
Oh, you're right. Yes.
Okay. Still good, but just making sure we're on the same
page.
No. Okay. I'm going to make a little bit of a roll here just to this is not for your success. This is for what else might cross your eye.
Oh, yes. Do please give me gifts.
Boy, your adversaries have had some terrible, terrible luck this evening.
I'm thrilled to hear.
Yeah, so...
May it continue indefinitely.
You are very rapidly cycling through possibilities for what might lead you to the necessary data for your extraction here. And eventually... by which I mean like within 120 seconds, you do find a couple of promising leads. Obviously, this is a network that doesn't have things named like exploitative AI grift, right? You have to sort of observe the shape of the file structure and investigate a couple of options. But you do find a few files that are named very differently in terms of their sort of description and naming conventions. And sure enough, with a little bit of investigation, this seems to be K&B's code. Now, within the file system is probably the best way to encounter this stuff, because it means that if you just move or delete it, then you take it out of their file system, and it doesn't matter how many different server blades or drives it might be hosted on, because it's going to take it out of their file system. However,
backups exist
often, and that will be its own task. But on the way to assessing those files, something does catch your eye. There is a small directory in terms of its disk size space labeled in all caps Canopus dot and then in all lowercase DRS.
Do I recognize DRS as a file type?
No, and it's the name of a directory. The dot is totally unnecessary here.
Yoink.
So, when you yoink this, are you attempting to remove the copy from VRuTech's server architecture, or are you just copying it?
Remind me who
Mhm.
or what Canopus is?
Canopus is the alias used by the weirdo who came into the frontispiece, whose debit card identified him as Caleb Dryden.
I'm removing it.
Okay. So what I need from you is another pair of rolls, one
Yep.
hacking and one ghosting.
Yep. Modified in any way or nah?
Not particularly.
Cool. That is a 15 on the hacking
Mhm.
and a 13 on the ghosting.
Okay. So that is going to be arithmetic.
Rip.
In order to do a clean job of this, you are going to need, well, you aren't able to predict this with a perfect accuracy, but as it turns out, about 10 minutes to not only copy the data, which goes relatively quickly, but to make sure that you're not leaving traces behind you. Fortunately, you have this admin access for the first little bit, and once it expires, well, you already have the transfers going. So we're going to come back to you in just a moment. In the meantime, Ing, you have 3 drones currently deployed from Burns' person, 2 on the 4th floor and 1 on the 3rd floor.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing with them?
The simplest thing is that I'd like Toots the Cockroach to rejoin the rest of the swarm on Burn.
Mhm.
After that, I think I'm going to recall Tran and Buddy. But just to the stairwell. I'm going to have one of them remain in the stairwell and the other go down further a few floors just to double check on the egress.
Well, neither of them can get through the door into the stairwell on their own. So
I see.
You were going to have to wait for Burn to come let them into the stairwell, or figure out another way for them to get into the stairwell.
Sorry about that.
Is what it is. So, is there any reason to believe that they're going to get in more trouble by showing up on more video footage, or has that ship sailed?
Mostly
Ship probably
sailed,
sailed.
and at closer to the stairwell, if you don't get right by the door, there's not going to be, as far as you can tell, surveillance coverage. Like outside of the server area, there is, server coverage of the door to the stairwell itself, but not, 10 feet off to one side. So it would be a reasonably safe place to wait.
All right. There's always more harm that can be done by going to explore the rest of the floor. So as much as that sounds like an exciting possibility, it would be an illogical choice to make. So I will just recall them to very near the stairwell, waiting to leave.
Okay. Now, this may be a non-starter for you, but this gives Kato a little bit of time hanging out. Anything in particular you're doing there?
I am beginning to become bored. I feel
this is dangerous.
It is highly. I feel an urge to clean the gun again and resist it. I start to look at the card again, and then decide that as long as I'm killing time anyway and keeping an eye on the group chat, I may as well get in touch. So there were a few ways to do that, if I recall. There was sort of an all-purpose internet handle. So I think, yeah,
you're correct. Yeah,
yeah.
Take
So
your pick.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what the best way to get in touch would be. I I guess this is something that Kata would for sure know that I don't necessarily. But what is sort of the first? If you think someone may have a hacker handle, what's a venue that is like not all the way secret, but if she's on there, then she's probably extra worth talking to, kind of thing.
So a Page's business card presents you with an email address and accounts on Ribbit, Rumbler, YourTube, and Now Snap.
I mean, let's. This is an alternate timeline, so I guess Ribbit hasn't been ruined yet, and may not be ruined in quite the same way. I'm gonna see if we share any sub-Ribbits.
A couple, sort of a general augmentation news sub-Ribbit, and what else would you be in? Let's see. Sort of like a subreddit unofficially affiliated with this universe's version of Goodreads, which we'll call
decent literacy.
My brain wants to go with copacetic pages, so that's a mouthful, but I like it too much to leave it behind.
At the copacetic pages.
How dare you? I invited it. It's not fair to throw it back on you. So those are the only two that you share in terms of tracking her, where she has posted most often. There is a subreddit for jailbreaking augments that keeps on getting moderated very heavily, that she's very active in. And then there is a subreddit that professes to be mostly philosophy, but ends up being, in fact, an awful lot of like theology and freshman year ethics. And she posts in quite a lot, usually somewhat exasperatedly from what you can tell.
Rather than doing a great deal more stalking on here, I go ahead and send a DM and just say, because DMs are open on Ribbit, I would assume, at least once they're approved, and just say, I can't quite say that I'm not busy yet, but our conversation's been on my mind.
I like that this is like 15 minutes after you talked.
You don't want to look too desperate. I waited 15 minutes.
So, Cal,
cool.
You have finished up with an increasingly stony face over at the Event Horizon parentheses, whatever the equivalent of like 503C is. I guess I don't actually know the designations especially, but it doesn't matter because it's an alternate universe, so I can make it whatever I want.
Space is not subject to the U.S. tax code.
Exactly. Thank you for summing that up well.
Good legal advice.
You have finished
this
up
is
here.
Not legal advice. I am not your lawyer, etc., etc.
This is not space legal advice.
I am not your space lawyer.
Inside you, there are two wolves. One is trying to get the podcast sued, and the other one is trying to prevent it.
No, this isn't about getting sued. Like, one, this is just knee-jerk rote reaction. Two, this is comedy. Three, this is more about my inactive law licenses than it is about anything else.
Sure. I will practice space law without a space license. I will do that.
I've gone inactive in both of the states in which I am licensed because it's like $500 a year cheaper and I don't have to deal with CLEs.
It's perfectly reasonable.
And you have never gotten your orbital law license, so...
This is correct because no such thing exists.
Exactly, which is why I can claim to be fully qualified by the Space Bar to give space legal space advice to our space listeners. Dez's face is a thing of beauty right now.
I'm
We
enjoying
can
this
move on.
intensely.
All right. I have stopped giggling about that and rejoined Cal's departure from Broderick's headquarters here. Broderick has not really stopped talking this entire time, but also does not make any move to prevent you from leaving, and has frankly started to repeat himself.
I kind of snap whatever the equivalent. I guess I would put my phone up with a snappy gesture, the space version of snapping a notebook close, indicating that my report has been completed. And I respond, I mention, with all of these glass incidents, I'm kind of surprised that you're not doing more to make less of a target of yourself. There's polycarbonate, polymer laminates, transparent aluminum. Have you considered going with something that might be less tempting to throw a brick through?
He says like 2 or 3 more words past the end of your statement and sort of like slows to a stop.
Glass is just uncommon on space stations, and most crimes these days are crimes of opportunity.
He looks for a moment like he is at war with himself and then grits out through clenched teeth. That sounds an awful lot like victim blaming, officer.
Not at all. I'm just offering some sound advice on how to prevent future incidents.
It is appreciated, and I will look into it.
I'm glad to hear it. I'm sure a nonprofit as prestigious as yours can afford the transparent aluminum over the cheaper polycarbonate.
He opens his mouth, closes it, and nods curtly, and then goes back inside and begins sweeping.
I leave. Try not to smile to myself as I turn away.
Cal
Perfectly
wins.
wonderful.
Fatality.
So, you are going to hear my little wooden box one more time. I mean, I don't guarantee that it's the last time, but at least this one.
I suddenly understand
One
ASMR.
more time is not,
Mhm.
indicative of a final time, but yes.
Depending on how this roll goes, I will also start to enter information about one Kenneth into Bacon, including his personal cell phone number.
Yeah, so you presumably as you make your way back to the vicinity of the Zenova Ultragraphics tower, begin to fill out this form.
And will I need another? I'll pick up the article of clothing that I stashed, and would I need to spend another prep to reactivate my camouflage? Both of my preps on.
I think you would.
Okay.
It feels unsatisfying because it didn't come too much into play the first time, but I think having deactivated it, you would need to activate it again with a prep.
Okay.
Alas. But yeah, Burn.
Adam.
You are finishing covering your tracks. You were pretty clean, but there's always a couple of things that need to be scrubbed from the logs here and there.
Oh,
Nothing
of course.
super identifying, but you don't want a root command showing up when the person wasn't in the office if you can help it. And so you are in the process of feeding a couple of commands to the command line in this regard, when something unusual happens, namely in between expected responses, a line shows up in the command prompt that seems to be talking directly to you, if awkwardly. It reads, "Who is intruder?" No punctuation.
I offer up two different hacker names, one extremely famous, one that I just don't like. Then I give 3 employee names and close with your mom.
Do roll a bullshit for me. Clever plus bullshit is going to be +4.
Roll D's
that-
plus nuts.
That is a total of 12.
Okay. So obviously this is not like a social situation per se, but
Right.
we're sort of gauging the reaction of whatever this sort of interposed questioning author is here. And there is a brief pause while further command line readouts from your other actions show up. And then in the midst of them, one pops up that is, just as far as you can tell, kind of garbage. It's, a hash of characters that looks like somebody basically just like fed hex code to the keystroke log.
I copy it,
Mhm.
encrypt the file in a way that will make it inoperative as software,
Mhm.
so that if it's like viral or something, it will not fuck me up.
Mhm.
And tuck that away deep in somewhere.
Mm-hmm. A couple more command line readouts confirming that you have, erased your tracks, as it were. And then a very official looking system readout about the building security coming online. You have about a count of 1,000, and then you start hearing the klaxon. Someone has manually triggered the building security. But fortunately,
I'm out.
It has happened after you have cleaned the system. So you have only to worry about your meat self exfiltrating. And Ing's drones.
Yeah. To the stairwell.
All right. You head over to the stairwell. Let's get a stealth roll to cover your egress here.
That is 6 plus whatever my stealth is.
Okay.
Wait.
That's in this case going to be
2 and quick, I assume.
Let's make it quick. Yeah, so 4 total. So 10.
So total of 10.
Okay. You are expedient, but a little less stealthy than you were on the way in. You don't think anybody who is present still takes any particular note of you, as they are currently in the process of standing up and looking at each other and going, "Huh? What's up? Is this a drill?" In terms of surveillance, it's mostly concentrated on ingress and egress. So as you approach the stairwell, you grow cautious.
Yep.
Any particular plans on exfiltrating this way?
I mean, I'm after the drones. I think what I'm actually going to do is take a fire escape.
Okay. Real quick, before we get into anything else, are you alerting your comrades to this state of affairs? Okay. Now, Ing, you will be aware before the other two, because you have drones in the building, and they are currently observing the klaxons going off on these floors. But Cal and Kato, you on, let's say, like within a minute or two of the conclusion of your previous activities as narrated, receive word from Byrne that security alert has gone up. Ing.
Yes.
your drones observe that security alerts are going off. Toots shortly observes Burn closing in on the area of the stairwell on the 3rd floor, but your other two, Tran and Buddy, are up on the 4th floor.
When Tran and Buddy did their initial sweep, did they see anyone still working on the 4th floor?
Not directly. It is possible that there are people in the offices that ring the outer wall, but your drones did not go to those offices. And no one has entered or exited an office since they've been on the floor.
All right. Since we have been communicating via chat, I put in the chat, prioritize your own getting out. Don't worry about the drones unless you can get them without putting yourself in danger.
There's a fire escape on the 4th floor, yeah?
There is, yeah.
Cool.
Every floor has a fire escape.
And also, Toots tries to scramble up Burns' leg on the way out. Matchstick's leg on the way out.
Well observed.
I do my very best to not grimace at the mechanical cockroach going up my leg.
Like a 72% C on the success of not grimacing. But
no one can see it, so it doesn't matter how it's graded.
Exactly. And you find your way to the fire escape. Now, of course, the problem with the fire escapes is that they only open from the inside. Once you are out on the stairs and ladders of the fire escapes, you will have a very hard time providing egress for the other two drones, even if you go.
They're on the 4th floor.
They are, yes.
I'm picking them up on my way to the 4th floor exit.
Oh, my understanding was that you were heading out the fire escape on the 3rd floor. My mistake.
No. I was going up to the 4th floor. There's a fire escape on the 4th floor. Question.
There is, yes. This does involve passing through the field of the surveillance of the 3rd floor stairwell,
and they will
but
see...
you do have Laughing Guy.
Yeah, they will see dubious security man.
3-mans is the way to make sure that no one is suspicious.
Put them all in a trench coat. What could possibly go wrong?
Indeed. So
we've already done that one shot.
Though I don't believe it has aired yet. You head up to the 4th floor, collect the other two drones on your way to the fire escape, and head out onto the exterior stairwell and ladder system. Now, this does layer a different alarm klaxon in with the first, but hopefully this will not raise too much suspicion as people are evacuating any way they can.
Yep. And also, for further everyone's amusement, one of my assets is a hoverboard.
It is
Nice.
Indeed. If you are making
So
use
I'm
of
not
it here.
on the external stairway for long. Backtracking slightly, I will suggest, as I am heading to the fire escape, that perhaps a slight distraction might be in order. That is to say, so people on the ground are looking not at the fire escapes.
I think I'd like to spend one prep to say that one of the fixery things Bronwy and I did was come up with a reasonable distraction on the block.
Mm-hmm.
Something, another local business that we could pop something off at, a disgruntled employee who I could further disgruntle. We came up with something.
Okay. I am going to
Delicious.
ask you to be at least a little bit specific with what actually ends up happening here. Use your imagination. This is your flashback, so.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to say when Bronwyn and I were talking, we realized there was a coffee place right across the street where someone has all of the dirt on the comings and goings of the normies and actually sort of has it out for one of the security guys in particular. And we made it clear that at a moment's provocation, this person would raise a ruckus if it looked like that person had finally screwed up. So I run over and simply point out that all hell seems to be breaking loose. Pretty confident that this person is going to begin loudly blaming one person in particular, and in any case, just generally being loud.
Okay. Yeah. And, this does begin to happen, a subsidiary distraction, and Matchstick at the moment begins the hoverboard journey away from the Zenobia Ultra Graphics building. What people were in there begin to file out, from various exits here and there. I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything here. I guess, Cal, in any particular actions in this situation, this environment?
I'm going to head in the direction of the building, not intending to make a scene or go in, just kind of hoping to pass by the fire escape so that if help is needed for egress, then I can help physically.
Good deal.
I'm really playing up the distraction. I'm saying, now we don't know that security officer Marvin Higgs is to blame. I'm actually hearing bad things about this Appleman's guy. We should probably get him out here just to be on the safe side.
All right. Before I forget to do this, then, I would like for you to make just a straight cool roll, which is +0 for you.
Okay. Hand in the game. Good Lord, 3.
You are distracting. You are in no way convincing.
In the short term, that's probably fine.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that it's not just me doing the distraction, but it's other people on the block, I will take as a good use of prep, and the rest will be gravy.
Yeah. Cal, anything in particular?
I am requesting report updates from the others and making sure that everyone's getting out. When I imagine Ing would let me know that he's going to the fire exit, so I would start to kind of cut a path there just to cover for anyone.
Now,
also, I don't know whether or not anyone other than possibly Kato knows that I have a hoverboard.
Mm-hmm.
I do not mention this over comms.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it'd be common knowledge, but Kato might, given that the hoverboard would be housed in the frontispiece.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Up to you all. Now, Cal, one thing that does cross your mind is that now that there is a fire alarm going off, Kenneth Appleman's is probably exiting the building.
You're welcome.
Oh, excellent. Assuming everyone else notified me that they are in good positions, I start to head towards the front of the building.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely dropped it in the chat if no one else did. I also, I also in my DMs said, just got busier.
So yeah, assuming that everybody does, kind of keep everyone up to date, which seems to be the thing that we're doing here, then Cal, this does cross your mind at about the time when it would be useful, and you head toward the front of the building, and sure enough, you see Officer Kenneth Appleman's pantomiming directing people away from the building. They don't seem to need direction. He is not particularly paying attention. You are not like super well versed in the level of surveillance saturation of the public area of the street here, but you're kind of between districts here.
I am going to, where my experience thinks there is likely a blind spot in the surveillance. I'm in a holographic projection armor regardless, but
You are.
I am going to start going Appleman's, right? I keep being
yes.
terrified I'm going to say Applebee's.
It's Appleman's, yes. But if you said
mean-
Applebee's, we would know who you meant.
Yes. I'm going to start trying to like discreetly get his attention, like, Officer Appleman's, there's a situation over here.
After a couple tries, he does turn around and sort of sees you in the holographic projection armor, and he sort of immediately sort of like hunches like he's looking around. He goes, "Situation. What's that?"
I lower my voice. I got him, but I had to stash him.
He lowers his voice. Good. Where?
I'm gesture for him to follow me.
All right. Let's have you roll cool plus corporate security for a 2d6 plus 3 roll.
Okay. And fun fact, I forgot about this last time, but when dealing with security forces, I have my ACAB ability, so that adds a +1 to my roll.
Excellent. You do absolutely have that.
So I rolled a nat 7 plus 3 would be 10, plus 1 is 11.
Yeah, all right. He sort of glances around as though trying to be surreptitious, and then looks at you and gives you sort of like a very brief nod, and still hunched, follows you.
So, if I can spin a group prep.
You have plenty. I don't think anybody's
We
used
have
any
plenty.
yet.
Yeah. I am going to say that while on stakeout, I surveilled the surrounding locations and found a dumpster that is not often used. Knowing that this might result in a bounty being taken out. So I'm going to lead Officer Appleman's to said dumpster under the pretense that's where the bounty is.
Okay. So you lead him. It's not super far, but it is out of general view. And he sort of looks at you, looks at the dumpster, looks at you, and then sort of nods at the dumpster with a question in his eyes.
Mm-hmm. I open the lid and gesture for him to peer in, which of course would require him to partially lean over it.
Yeah, he sort of like does get up sort of on the balls of his feet and sort of looks in.
Once his center of gravity is close enough to the dumpster, I zap him.
All right.
I knew that this was where this was going, and I'm so fucking happy for you, Robin.
Absolutely perfect.
I'm so excited.
So I would like you to roll your basically your tough attack, which as far as I can tell is going to be 2d6 plus 1, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be tough. Just to throw that out there, it's not going to be tough to get him, but we're going to roll it anyway.
My ACAB talent will still be an effect. So
It's
2d6
true.
plus 2.
All right.
Oh, that wasn't great, but I got a nat 4, so 6.
6. Okay. So you do manage to basically zap him like right on the plate of his like very basic little vest. he's like sliding back off of the lip of the dumpster at the time that you zap him. But this doesn't really prevent him from getting zapped. It just makes it less of a clean get. And so he sort of looks at you with a tout brute face, but instead of saying anything, he just goes
I'm going to quickly zip tie. I imagine he has limp, so I'm gonna zip tie and yeet him into the dumpster.
You zip tie him and yeet him in the dumpster. It does take you like probably 60 seconds to do both. He is bulkier than you, but you're in pretty good shape. And you get him in there with a resounding boom.
Before I close the lid, I just lean in a little bit and go, nothing personal. Just try harder. And then close the lid.
You are uncertain whether he hears you or not. He is stun gunned.
He is
And
a burbling mess.
I will notify Bacon accordingly and claim that when he found out that I was a bounty hunter, there was a fight that ensued and I was able to wrest his stun gun from him.
And you get the little animated check mark that says your report has been submitted successfully.
Along with the coordinates of the dumpster.
Yes. Correct. Yeah. The report includes the coordinates of the dumpster. So, in this interim, Matchstick and the attendant drones have made, as far as you are aware, a clean getaway. And you are in the vicinity. I guess, Cato, you were doing distraction things. That has wound down. And you are
become less necessary.
Slipping away mode there.
To the degree that I can slip inconspicuously, looking the way I look, I try to leave before the chaos has dissipated completely.
Sure. I am going to force you to roll there because you haven't done a whole lot of rolling this time.
Fair
But
enough.
let's
What am I
do a cool, but this time I will also give you criminal underworld. So cool plus 2d6 plus 2.
Cool. So that is a total of 9.
Okay. It's like if anybody was interrogated about your presence, they would probably remember you and remember you leaving, but you don't draw any undue attention to yourself, certainly. And so probably the next sort of, I don't know how big, but big-ish thing is regrouping. How do we communicate and where do we do that?
I will say that, if I'm in the vicinity when Burn comes down the fire escape, I clap them on the shoulder and do my best to ruffle their hair. We'll see whether the hand gets snapped off in the process, but yeah, then just joining up and casually strolling away.
Yeah. Up to
I think the
Burn.
plan
It
is probably to
doesn't, but it's a
reconnoiter
near
at the front.
thing.
The plan is almost certainly to reconnoiter at the frontispiece, but not to take the same route or indeed a direct one. So I think we all meander.
Oh yeah, no, I will spend one of my unused prep to change into different bulky clothing somewhere.
Good call. Yeah. And yeah, go ahead and that just happens.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Ditto. I got some prep too. Use it or lose it.
Yeah, how much prep do we have left as a group? Because I would have
Quite
to
a bit.
depend on group prep.
A lot.
Quite a bit.
Yeah, I will also...
The rolls went well in there, so we have some spare prep. Yeah.
And also, I wasn't really thinking about what I could accomplish with prep, so, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Point of order question.
Yes.
Adam, was the unprompted security, whatever it was, more on the order of, like, AI security, such as it is only in Elon Musk's wet dreams, or was it like a human within the system, or like what was the vibe of it, or do I know anything about what the fuck was going on there?
Excellent question. The vibe is confusing because it had more of the cadence of like a human in the system, but the actual like nature of the interaction suggested something more like chatbot integrated security AI. Not something you've really encountered before.
Right.
Unhelpful as that may be, 'tis the truth.
That was approximately what I was expecting in response, particularly given my long and frustrated history with your GMly teasers.
Fair.
I say this with love, to be clear.
So eventually, the four of you plusing drones regroup back at the frontispiece. I'm going to say, given the circumstances that Kato, you're the first one back, and you arrive back to find that Gorister has clocked out for the day, leaving Bronwy and Prolix to monitor the back room. And that is what they are doing when you return. You take down the out to Blunch sign. Flip it to close.
Well, Blunch was a success.
Bronwy, assuming that's who you're talking to, looks up and raises her voice over Prolix's litany.
Prolix.
Yeah. And says, "Oh, well, good. Not that you bothered to tell me what you were doing, but everything's been fine here."
Yeah, about that. I'm sorry at least twice over for not bringing you into the loop. You've been nothing but trustworthy, and I have been an asshole. There's been too much going on, and I haven't handled it well. We helped a friend out. It involved breaking into a building, though, so there could be some noise incoming.
All right. Well, I guess thank you for telling me now. Look,
I feel like I'm making you say that a lot lately, and yeah, that's on me.
she waves her hand and she says, "As much as I may not appreciate your communication priorities, I trust your intentions. Maybe not so much that cop you hang out with, but you are reliably on the right side of things. And I appreciate you putting me up. I know it's tit for tat, but, you know, somebody fulfilling an obligation is, you know, worthy of gratitude as well. Like, you want to be polite. I guess what I'm getting at is, if you don't want to loop me in, that's fine. But I need you to tell me to get lost. If I'm going to be staying here, and hey, I like the kid. I really like the android. He's really cool. He doesn't talk to very, very much, but I don't know. Something about the accent. It's cute.
And for the record, the cop hates cops about as much as anyone you'll ever meet. But yeah, finish.
She gives you sort of a arch eyebrow and shakes her head and says, "Gorister is the worst company here. I mean, who doesn't like mate? But in any case..."
I laugh at that in character.
My point is that I think that if you keep me in the loop, we'd be fine. If you don't want to, though, I just need you to tell me and then I can leave. Okay?
More than fair. We've been operating on consensus here, and there's been a lot of information floating around that, if exposed and connected to someone, could cause trouble. I think there was a combination of not getting agreement as to what to tell you and not tell you from the whole group, and not wanting to create trouble for you. But that was misguided. You're in or you're out, and you seem to be in. So telling you everything gets my vote.
I guess that means something. Later. So far,
Yeah.
the package, and she gestures at what she and Gorister have done with the device, which is basically to sort of add an interior structure to the wraparound Faraday cage and hoist it off the ground so that it sort of slowly spins in the middle of the back room. It is very obvious to anybody who comes into the back room, but as long as you're good about who has access, shouldn't be an issue, and less accessible from the floor. But she gestures and says, no activity from the guest, no uninvited guests so far. Again, all of this is in slightly raised voices over Prolix's background noise. As Prolix sort of prowls the edges of the room, and she sort of gestures to Prolix and says, I mean, he's annoying as hell, but he seems to be doing the job, so... And this is around about the time that I'll rule everyone else shows up in whatever order or combination you wish to.
All right. I'd probably show up a bit later. I take a circuitous path back and have a few of my drones just kind of watch my tail for me to see if anybody is following the random turns I take before eventually heading back to the frontispiece.
Mm-hmm. Nobody shows up on your surveillance, such as it is, so that you take that as a pretty good sign.
All right. And yeah, I regroup at the frontispiece. Greet anybody that's already there.
Yeah, so that amounts at that point to Kato and Bronwy. Bronwy is, looking a little frazzled, but very friendly in her greeting.
Welcome back.
Yeah, well, seems like a success.
Seems like it. Is the swarm okay? No injuries?
Yeah, the swarm's okay. I worry a bit about that security footage, but that's a problem for hopefully tomorrow. Speaking of which, I thought that the kid was very nearby. I send out a text, just pinging to make sure everyone's okay.
I guess
I respond with a pair of eyes.
And
I think that's good. I think that one's good.
Burn, I guess you and your hoverboard, how far afield are you?
I mean, the hoverboard disappears into the ether sort of as I change clothing, so yeah, best not be seen with a hoverboard, having just used it to criminally get out of a building after criminally getting into a building.
It might be memorable. The kid who took off on a hoverboard.
Yeah,
the adult.
yeah,
Excuse
that.
me. The
Sure.
legal adult who took off on a hoverboard.
Fair enough. I guess how far behind Ing voicing concern are you showing up to the frontispiece? Or responding via text if you're going to be a minute?
I respond that I'm 3 minutes out and, like, hopefully not to worry.
Mm-hmm.
Circuitous route changed clothes and am not using the hoverboard.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
You get an attempted texted ASCII art of me doing a thumbs up. It's not good.
The thumbs up is the only identifiable part of this ASCII art. Everything else is just noise.
I give an extended critique.
Okay, yeah, he's fine.
And in due time, everybody congregates back at the frontispiece.
Once I walk in the front door, I hold up the stun gun such that it's very clear the cartridge has been extended and actually grin toothily in Kato's direction before putting it back.
I raise both arms as if to say touchdown.
But in fact, what you say is touchdown. It's because his arms are asymmetrical. You see,
yeah, it's like they're sheet music
For listeners.
No idea.
I should
And
apologize,
what I
but
actually-
I won't.
No, I would never ask that of you. What I do say diegetically is zap.
Back 'em and tack 'em.
So this is a reminder to me and to everybody. Normally you roll to lose cash at the end of a session, but since we are approaching the end of our session currently, we are going to award your 2 cash from Bacon at the beginning of next session, and then use it or lose it within that. So just note to myself, to Cal, to everybody else, to our listeners, Cal is awarded 2 cash from Bacon at the beginning of next session.
Nice.
All right.
So
Before Matchstick arrives, I'd just like to talk to my compatriots here and try to arrange a slow clap when they enter.
Bronwy is all for this.
I enthusiastically consent. Yeah, let's do it.
One moment.
This is key. Who starts?
Prolix responds with, "Give lady if they such they sure of it."
The cat's in too, but who starts? That's important.
I think it might mean a lot coming from you, Hecate.
I'm honored. And I like the way you think. Let's do it. Before he gets here, I just need to say it. I'm just glad he's okay. I know he's good at this, but I also know he knows he's good at this, and that's exactly the kind of thing that, causes trouble for him.
Now, Burn, you can show up at any point during this or after.
I think that I show up like midway through that statement.
I turn around and begin clapping slowly.
I do not clap.
I will bow theatrically as if I am unaware of the sarcasm of the clapping.
Well, for what it's worth, whether you register it or not, Bronwy's clapping is totally sincere.
100%.
As
I think
it sings,
everyone
by
who's
the way.
clapping, who's clapping is clapping sincerely. Yeah.
I don't think that you understand the meaning of slow clap.
For what it's worth, Bronwy certainly does not, though it probably doesn't come up.
It is possible no one slow clapping has any idea that there's an ironic component. Yeah.
In Ing's case, no, absolutely not.
I would not either. So I would assume it was just applause and would avoid it.
A dad joke of a celebration.
As the clapping
I just
winds
can't
down,
with you people.
I like how everyone is sincerely slow clapping and Matchstick is ironically accepting it. So
Not everyone.
Yeah. Well, and as the
That
slow
too is
clapping
sincere.
winds down, Prolix says, "Luckily, friends do ashamed to do suppose." And Bronwy looks a little self-conscious and clears her throat and says, "Well, whatever it was that you were all out to do, I'm glad you're back safely." At which point, Burn, you receive a notification. This is a specific notification that you get when you have an unsolicited message from a more or less personal account rather than some sort of bulk mailer thing. The subject
What's it say?
reads, "Please RSVP." It is from an obscured address. This is not hard to do. You, given a little time, may be able to track it back depending on this tool they used. But the content of the message, you see it as essentially alt text because you don't immediately open images from unidentified senders.
Fucking correct.
Indeed. But it is an invitation to and it says this, soiree, nearer the other end of the cylinder by where the government buildings are, in 3 days, from somebody identifying themselves as capital H, lowercase a, capital H, lowercase I, or Hahi, as you read it. Having scanned for anything that phones home or malicious and finding nothing, the image, again, opened cautiously in a secure environment, is a relatively classically decorated sort of save the date card, as it were, with some kind of hybridized foliage and circuitry imagery, foliage nearer the top, circuitry nearer the bottom, inviting you by the name Matchstick, and any friends you wish to bring to an evening shindig. And that's where we'll end our session.
Huh.
So the first thing I need to do here, this represents the conclusion of quite a bit of sort of combined effort here. And so this system handles character advancement via milestones, which is a little hard to track sometimes when it's like interpersonal dealings with people in your community. But here we have, successfully extracted some data, a little bit of bonus data, and gotten
Zapped a guy.
Yeah, a bounty, a fair few things here. And so I'm going to award everybody 4 XP, which is pretty high, though not unheard of for Hardwired Island sessions. This is essentially covering the last couple, though. It means that we should be able to do some character advancement at the beginning of next session. So be thinking about that before we convene once again for this. But as you note that down, this will conclude the session of Dice Punks. Thanks for joining us. I hope our players and listeners enjoyed it as much as I did, and that you'll all join us again next time. If you're hearing us now, then you probably know where to find us, but we can be found almost any place one can listen to podcasts, as well as on the wider web at dicepunks.com and on Tumblr and Blue Sky as @dicepunks. With that, though, I think we're ready to say farewell, so say goodbye to the kind folks back on Earth, players.
Thanks for listening, and, take care of your friends. Do a zap.
Thank you for listening, everyone, and never be afraid to take out the trash.
Thanks for listening, folks, and always have a backup extraction plan.
Thanks for listening, folks. I don't have any advice for you, but if you want to play with us, just insert your character into awkward silences.
Fun fact, that's an option in absolutely every podcast you listen to. Well, as the poet once said, always object, never subject. Can you see us? Are we there? Are we there? Beloved listeners, thank you for tuning in. Stick around through the admin stuff for a Cato log. The main theme for this campaign, Augment or Die, is by Emerson Boatwright and our very own mechanical person, Drew. You can find links to more of their music in the show notes. Editing on our rad new cover art was done by Joanne, who has appeared on the podcast now and again. Check out her work around the internet where she goes by anything so's. Site design and graphics for dicepunks.com are by the one and only Officer Armitage, Robin. Hardwired Island is by Paul Machevic, Freya Erlingsdotter, and Minerva McJanda. You can find Hardwired Island at etten.itch.io/hardwiredisland. Links to system and authors can be found on the Punk Grimoire section of our website, dicepunks.com. Thanks so much for listening. If you liked what you heard, that's reward enough on its own, but if you're so inclined, you can help us out by rating and reviewing us wherever you listen to us, telling your friends who you think would like us to give us a listen, and even by heading over to our Patreon at patreon.com/dicepunks. We have fun rewards available to backers, including a patron-only Discord and access to the Dice Peaks After Show for episode 1.1 and following. Regardless, we hope you'll tune in again, and until then, remember, subtlety is for cowards.
Now, before we try and pull this break-in off, I should get things in order around here. There's this other kind of cataloging I have to do from time to time, that is going through the things that people drop off here. Manifestos and mixtapes on mini discs and cheap flash drives. Spring-loaded spam traps that project and blink and scream like carnival-barking augverts. I tend to put this kind of sorting off, and so these things tend to accumulate in unwieldy, though quarantined, Byrne insists, piles. We have some rudimentary countermeasures against malware, explosives, chemical agents, but that leaves the pricklier, more time-consuming question, is there any useful information here? That's the question that makes this worth doing now, before leaving for the stakeout, while Prolix stands in vigilance and prolixity a few rooms over. Right now, it's worth asking whether anyone's been trying to slip us a message. Unsolicited advice, a threat, an offer of help. Nothing jumps out at first, at least nothing along those lines. Some student alt-weeklies, likely to be short-lived, someone's ogmo-ketogenic cookbook, I think it says, sent in the hopes that we'll put copies on the counter. Manuscripts as though we're a publisher, bulletins as though we're a coffee shop. There was a drag show and we missed it. Never heard of Antifa Trebuchet, but she's got a look. Nothing to indicate that anyone knows about the baby, or that we're working on K&B's problem, and no one is treating this as Bronwe's forwarding address either. All for the best. No additional shoes drop, no new problems materialize, and no old ones worsen. This anticlimax does nothing, and I do mean nothing, for my stress levels.